Hey everybody, I'm Dave with Growing the Home Garden. Today I'm going to show you how to propagate several different types of viburnum. I've got some viburnums here that are just past blooming. They're ready to be pruned back, but before I do that I want to take some cuttings of them and make some more. So I've got a Shasta viburnum, I've got an Arrowwood viburnum, I've got an Onondaga viburnum, which I love, and then there's another one which is the traditional Snowball, Japanese Snowball viburnum. They're all very cool viburnums, and I'll just show you how easy it is to get these things to root. We'll start the process today, and then I'll have to give you an update in a couple of weeks after they've got some rooting. So let's get to it, and I'll take you over to the Shasta viburnum first. Now, I don't really like to walk around with my big flat of sand and peat mix, which is what I'm going to use as a medium. I prefer to carry around a glass of water, a cup of water, a jar of water, something like that, so I can put my cuttings in that and they don't lose any moisture while I'm going through and taking the cuttings. Now this here is our Shasta viburnum. It's located just off of our back deck a little bit. This is not the one that I severely pruned a while back. That one's over there. But I've got several of these. They're beautiful plants and I can't get enough of them. I've got like 4 of them right now. But I can make a whole lot more. In fact, I've got about 5 or 6 in the garden, little potted plants that are going to get moved eventually. So with these, this is what I do. I'm looking for first year growth that looks kind of like this. All right, it has already bloomed. Some of the branches are producing berries, which I'm not really worried about keeping or growing seed from. And I'm going to strip off everything here with the cutting. All the leaves are going to come off, except for the ones right here at the top. Now, if I've got a big leaf like that, I think that's too big for me. So what I want to do is I'll just cut it in half and make something like this. And in fact, that center growth, I'm even going to pluck that off. Right here at the very bottom, you can see there's a node. Get a little closer to the camera. Let's see that. Okay, that is a node right there, and that is the internode, the section between those 2 nodes. Now, for this, I know it'll root anywhere in between that internode, but I'm going to take it just below that node like that. And I'm going to make most of my cuttings look very similar to this for the viburnums. So with that, I'm going to just stick it in here, and I'll see how many of these I can get off of this plant. I'm looking for first year growth, and you can kind of notice that. I'm going to cut a little further back on here so you can see the difference between first year growth and second year growth. Right here is the first year or second year growth. That was last year. And this is this year. You can see the color difference between the two, hopefully, if the camera's focusing right. So I don't really want any of that. I'm going to cut it right there. And prune off all the leaves like I did on the last one. And cut the big leaf in half, just like that. And then I'll just pluck off the middle piece. So in the end, I have 1 leaf, or actually half of a leaf, that I'm going to keep as my cutting. So I'm going to go to it and get a few more. So size-wise, we're talking about 5 or 6 inches. I'm even going to try this one, which is probably about 3 to 4 inches. Now this one here is the Onondaga, and you notice the maple leaf kind of look to it. It's really a pretty viburnum to have in the spring. It's got kind of burgundy in the flowers and stuff. I'll pop a picture up here for it. But on this one, the leaves are, the stems are a little bit thinner than what you see what I have on the Shasta viburnum. So I'm going to take it kind of like that, and I'm going to leave those 2 top leaves there and just see what happens. Now a couple of these, I'm going to leave it with no node on the bottom just to experiment, see how well they do. I think they'll do fine. I've had them root before in between the nodes, so it's not critical. But what nodes do is they have a lot of auxins in them. Those are hormones for growth, and those help the rooting along. So the more nodes you have in a cutting, usually the better it's going to be, especially if they're closer together and tighter together. You'll have more chance that you're going to develop some roots eventually. This here is the Japanese Snowball viburnum, not to be confused with the Shasta viburnum. Those are completely different types. This one here, you'll notice, has the maple leaves on it, and the type of cutting I've got is a little bit more greenwood than what the other one was. So I'm going to just do the same thing here, strip it off, being careful not to break the main stem, And I'll leave a couple leaves at the top of each one of these. So I've got about 4 to 6 here. So I didn't really count. But I'll just let the leaves drop, pluck it out, and it'll look like something like this. So now I've got all my viburnum cuttings I'm going to take for right now in a cup, and I'm going to go take them back to the flat where I've got everything prepared with peat and sand mix. So that's what we'll go do next. Okay, I'm back over to our patio, and over here I've got this sand and peat mixture. I'll take a look in there. It looks like mostly sand on top. What I did is I put the peat down at the bottom because it likes to absorb water. And then I put the sand over top of it to kind of weigh it down a little bit. Both are kind of a sterile thing. You can mix it together how you want to. We all have our own ways of doing things. But right here, I'm going to start with these. These are the Snowball, Japanese Snowball Viburnum. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to stick them in the already wet soil mixture. And I'm going to try to keep this nice and organized. I may end up doing 2 per cell. We'll see how that goes, see how many cuttings I actually took. But this is pretty easy. It's really the aftercare that is a little bit more difficult, because you want to make sure that your conditions are good, that they're staying moist, and they're not rotting. There's one of the Shastas. I'm going to come over here on the other side. Try to keep them separated. For me, it's not a big deal because I know these viburnums so well. That's going to be the Onondaga. But if you want to, you may want to label them, especially if you're new to doing cuttings, because I can tell you, over time, you'll get things mixed up. I've done it many times before. But these are different enough that they're fairly easy to tell. I want to make sure I leave enough space here for the Arrowwood. And I've got too many leaves on that Arrowwood, so I'm going to pinch off a couple more and just leave those little ones. Right here like that. Onondaga, I can tell it so easily because it's got the reddish tint on those stems. It's just one of its characteristics there. They are beautiful plants. I've got 2 in the garden. One I bought, the other was free because I made a cutting. There's more Arrowwood. And again, I've got too many leaves on that one. Just sticking them in. Another Arrowwood. So some of these I'm definitely going to need to double up in order to stick all the cuttings. But that's not a big deal at all because they are pretty sturdy little plants. Actually, I have just enough here. I've got a flat that has 18 slots and I've only had to double up 1. So not too bad overall. So I've got these all in the flat. The next step is to watch and wait. They've been moistened. We're going to have some more rain tomorrow probably. I'll go ahead and finish them up with some more moisture here. But the thing is to keep them misted a little bit. And I'm not going to cover these. I'm going to put them under the shade of a Japanese maple here to my left. Right there. And I'm going to keep them under there. I'm going to spray them every now and then with water. Just a misting kind of spray from the garden hose. And that'll be about it. And I'm just going to let them sit there until I'm confident that they've got some roots. It actually doesn't take too long. It'll probably be about a month and they'll have some pretty good roots on them. And we'll be back and I'll show you some updates on them. We'll probably see a little bit of growth popping out here and there, and there's probably going to be some of these that don't make it. That's just kind of the way it is when you grow plants, when you propagate plants, is that some of them just don't happen. Even the best of circumstances, you'll lose a few. Not everything's going to work out. So this is basically how I do the viburnum cuttings. I've done it a few different ways. I've done it with this method. I've done it where I've covered them. I've done them in just sand. I've done them in peat. I've done them in just soil. And I've had pretty good success in all methods. Let me go show you a couple of Shasta viburnums that I've got in the garden that I did last year. So here's one Shasta viburnum I've got. It actually needs a little bit of fertilizer right now. I can tell the leaves are looking a little more yellow than I'd like them to be. And the same goes for most of these that are in the pots. But there's 2 right there, and I've got 2 more right over here beside them. Right like that. Probably the best solution would be for me to find them a permanent home at this stage and let them grow all on their own. So basically that's how I propagate viburnums. They're not hard plants, they're very simple plants to propagate. You don't have to use the sand and peat. You could use a soil mixture, you could use just sand, you could use just peat, you could use peat and perlite, peat and vermiculite. It's a lot of combinations that are going to work for that soil media, so don't feel hung up by getting all the right stuff. If you've got a good potting mix, just put it in a pot, stick the cuttings in that, keep it moist, and I bet you will have success. This is just how I do it. There's many different ways you can do things in the garden. There are some wrong ways you can do things in the garden, but there's a lot of right ways you can do things in the garden. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope it's got you interested in propagating some viburnums. If you don't have a viburnum, find a garden friend that's got one, make some copies of that plant, take some cuttings of it, root it, and put some in your garden. That way you have it. Or make some copies of it and share it. Give it to friends who may not have it. So it's just a really cool, fun thing to do. So thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. I'd love to have you along for the journey here. And until next time, have fun in the garden.